Hi, friends. Welcome to the Like-Minded Radicals, the podcast designed for individuals like you who believe there's a better way to work and live. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Like-Minded Radicals, where we're exploring unique insights on the good, the bad, and the ugly of workplace transformation. This is the place you'll hear the stories of freelancers, entrepreneurs, and organizational leaders who are daring to do it differently, bringing unique takes on making the workplace more engaging and more human. I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Cameron Elliott. He is currently the country manager for Good Habitz, an international e-learning platform. Cameron has had a career dedicated to the pursuit of training and development across Asia Pacific, holding various roles throughout, including founder. I had the pleasure of recently meeting Cameron at the local launch party for Good Habitz here in Brisbane, and I was immediately struck by his passion and his energy for this emerging product on the L&D scene. I'm really excited to learn more about his journey as well as the mission of his current employer, who believe, just as I do, that meaningful learning in the corporate sphere starts with self. So without further ado, welcome Cameron to the Like-Minded Radicals.
Thank you, Kendra. Great to be here. Was I here for the good, the bad, or the ugly?
I'm hoping the good. I'm sure the good, but I think having folks like yourself on the podcast is really about illuminating some of the ugly. I think there are dark corners in the corporate sphere that if we don't shine a light on them, they're going to continue to, create monsters under the bed. So hopefully you'll have some experiences that you can share that, have helped you to create a life and a career that you love. So I'd love to just kind of get into it with you. We're gonna why don't you just walk us through kind of who you are, a quick introduction, and how you've been shaped by your career and who you are today and what you're doing.
How I've been shaped by my career. I don't know if I can do a quick introduction.
That's a big ask.
Too old for that to be a quick introduction now. So so thanks again for having me on, Kendra, and it was lovely to meet you at the event a couple of weeks back. So my name is Cam Elliott. I originally started my career in sales. So I worked for Channel 7, was my first ever real job after bartending and all that type of thing. Nice. And then I kind of stayed in media for a while, and I ended up becoming the sales director for a B2B publishing company, which was called Read Business Information. And so I left there in 2012, swearing that I would never have another job again, and hence the founder title that you referred to.
Okay.
And so I started actually a couple of different businesses. Neither of them were in the learning space. To make some money on the side, I started doing some training for, back when I was the sales director, there was a woman called Julia Lee who was my training director at that same organization, and she'd moved on to a different organization and she needed some help. So I ended up going in and doing some training for her company, and I just loved it. So I ended up really getting quite passionate about that learning space. And at the same time, I had my own kids, and I was getting to the point where we were sending them to school, and I started to think about education, and I started to think about my own education, which I didn't really enjoy. I liked going to school, but only because my friends were there. But I didn't really like learning at school. And my wife and I made a decision that we should move to Bali, because there was this incredible school over in Bali called the Green School. And it was all about, the whole child learning, not maths and science. It was more about developing emotional intelligence and being able to help build full people, really. So I really enjoyed that. And we ended up living over there for 4 years. And at the same time, I decided that I really liked the learning space and I was reasonably good at the training part of it. And so I ended up starting my own training business, which was called Elevate Corporate Training. And I ran that for about 8 or 9 years, kind of going back and forth from Bali to Singapore or Bali to Sydney or Melbourne. And then after a while, we decided to move back to Australia. We moved up to Byron Bay, which was a compromise. I didn't really want to leave Bali, so my wife was pretty keen
That's
to move
fair.
back.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so we met halfway. And then I got the opportunity I got approached by actually a friend of mine who had moved from Bali back to the Netherlands to become the chief revenue officer at Habitz, this online learning company. And he said to me, would you be interested in if we move into Asia, because he was going back there to globalize the company, in taking on a role. And at the time I said, yeah, not really. It sounds a lot like a job and not really into online learning. So he called me about 3 years later and I said exactly the same thing to him. I said, that sounds like a job. And I promised I wasn't going to get one of those. And I wasn't, that keen on online learning. But anyway, he convinced me to have a look at it, and it really just was a huge paradigm shift for me in what it meant, what online learning meant, and what corporate learning could be, and the way that it can be fun, it can be engaging, and so. I decided to take the leap, and I managed to sell my business, and I took on this role as the country manager for Good Habitz, and so I've been doing that for the last 2 years. It's been super successful. We've made a great impact into the Australian market, and I've got a good team here, so couldn't be happier.
Amazing. That's amazing. Wow, what an experience. I imagine in Bali that you've met a lot of people who were kind of doing it differently, who also maybe swore off of having a job. Take us through a little bit about that experience and what were some of the themes maybe that you were seeing amongst the people that you were meeting in that space?
Yeah, it was super interesting, and there were so many like groups, So I had there were people who were there because they were really passionate about child education, for example, and so they were, used words that I didn't really know at the time, like dichotomy, all those learning nerd kind of terms. And then there was the kind of an expat community of people, and they, all had different kind of experiences. And some of them, often we would get people who would come for a year, and they would, they'd saved up money to have a year off or get they've got some time off from a role or something like that. And so they tried really hard to do that. And then they get a taste of it for a year, and they were like, geez, I don't want to leave. All of a sudden, one kind of had to become entrepreneurial. So a lot of people came there with one idea, and then we're like, okay, no, I need to pivot. I need to grind. I need to figure out how to make this happen. And so I fortunately was kind of a little bit of a different approach to it, in that I'd already started my own business. And so I met those sort of people, and then all the way through to, there was a couple of people who were billionaires that were at the school that just, wanted to send their kids there, and they were great people as well. So it was such a diverse range of people, and I can't forget all the local people as well, like just the lot of the local teachers at the school, a lot of my friends that I had from surfing and that type of thing. So this really broad mix, and so from the local people, and who are just so amazing at living in the moment. If you've ever been to Bali, if you get away from all of the crappy parts of it, there's the people are just phenomenal, and the way that they experience life, and the way they deal with all the change and everything else. So I took a lot from that. And then the energy from a lot of the other entrepreneurs there was super inspiring.
I can imagine.
it definitely fueled my desire to know more about learning and to see that what I had as learning in my own mind, even with the business that I was running, was not necessarily, the only way, and that, learning could actually be fun. It could be engaging. It could be inspiring. It can be about stuff that you actually want to learn. So all of those types of things.
Yeah, I think one of the things that when I think about learning is so often it's like top down, pushed out, and
Mm.
really, what is it that your employees want to learn? What are the skill sets that they think they need to improve upon in order to continue to do their job better? How does Good Habits kind of craft that learning journey? You talked a little bit when we met about self and how it starts with self, that you utilize a lot of assessments. Can you walk us through a
Yeah,
little bit about that?
yeah, sure. So no, I think this is like a really interesting thing to like stop and think about as well. Like
Yeah.
if I said to you today, Kendra, like, what do you want to learn today? What would you say?
Ah, I want to learn all sorts of random things that don't necessarily have to do with the job I'm doing.
Maybe.
Very curious, but yeah, I'm always looking to learn.
Yeah. Look, it's a challenging question, and that's I don't mean to put you on the spot, but that's
Yeah.
you know, it's so often we don't take that time to stop and think about, okay, well, where am I going? What do I want to do? What do I need to get there? And so a huge part of what Good Habits does is, and the formula that we have is that self development starts with self insight. So that is, if I can learn a little bit about myself, then I'm more likely to be motivated, to be able to change, to learn about the things that are going to have the biggest impact for me. And so we
Yeah.
have a suite of self-assessments. We have a what we call our growth model, which is essentially all of the human skills mapped out and all of our content mapped to those particular skills. And then we have self-assessments that help people to understand what are the things that they like, what are the things that they're good at, what are the blind spots that they maybe didn't know that they have, what are some of their weaknesses or areas for improvement. And so
Right.
this allows an individual to actually start to learn something about themselves. And if you think of a lot of corporate online learning type platforms, you generally get content pushed at you because what your role is or a program that's running, and that's good. We will that will continue to happen, and we will always need. Good, strong learning programs to be able to drive an organization forward. But for me as an individual working in an organization, I'd be much more tempted, I would say, to
Yeah.
go in and do a short 5 to 10 minute self-assessment about my communication style or my leadership style or my personality type, so that I can learn something about myself. And then if I can be pointed in the right direction for that piece of content that's actually going to make me go, yeah, okay, that is
Yeah.
interesting to me, or that is something that I can use, then we get impact. That's where change starts to happen, is at that point. And so we want to get people to that point as quickly as we possibly can. And that idea of self-insight leading to self-development, we believe is really the key to it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Have you done the self-assessments yourself?
I have, of course. We have close to 30 of them. So I
Okay.
haven't done 30 of them. We also, when we do assessments, can you think of a worse word than assessments? It's the worst word in the world.
I know, and yet I love them.
So boring. But so when we do assessments at Good Habits, we talk about good habitsifying them, which means that we make them as short as possible. We make them colourful, and we kind of make them a bit interesting. So we do a lot of drag and drop and things like that to kind of make it a bit more playful. Um,
Nice.
so we've got 30 of them, but most of them are under 10 minutes. But what we also do is when we deliver the information to people, we don't want you to have to be an HR professional or a learning professional to understand it. So we do it in every man's language. And that means that when we're delivering the results, it's not going to be a 40-page document about your communication style or your leadership style. It's going to be nuggets of information that can have impact. And so
Yeah.
we even do that with the way that we brand the results. So if you think of a traditional, let's say a communication style assessment, something like DISC you might use.
Yeah.
So you're dominant and you're everything else. And so you really need to understand what goes into DISC in order to be able to get something out of that. So when we Good
Right.
Habits apply that, we change it all. So I'm a high I on the DISC profile. I come out as what we call an enchanting yellow in Good Habits style. And it talks about being a bit of a social butterfly and a bit of a center of attention and a bit of a fear of conflict
Yeah.
and a lot of like key takeaways that you would expect. And then it points me to those directions. So yeah, I have done them all. We've also got things like happiness at work. We've got things like how do you learn, or how agile are you to change? So a whole bunch of different, and we keep adding to these as well. But super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to know I think you have to, it's where we're failing a lot of people, is that ability to understand self and to know those strengths and to know those learning styles. Learning is a great space to start to have that conversation. So then you can take it to the actual work itself, to the team, to express, hey team, this is who I am. This is how I operate. This is what the value that I bring and how I show up to the table. These are also some of the things you might notice about me that, might put you off. It's not that I'm trying to just challenge you on everything. It's just that I'm a disruptor. That's my natural way my brain works. I'm just asking questions out of curiosity and to understand process.
Yeah.
I'm unraveling my own neurodiversity and my neurodivergence at the moment. So really into it. But I think so much we think about self. When we think about self, we think about it selfishly and as individuals. But that's how individuals then can communicate to other individuals and create that connection that we're all lacking in the workplace, especially when we're all working remote. How are you learning? How are you using those self-assessments then to create that connection with the team? Are there additional activities or exercises where employees
great
utilize
question,
sharing that
Kendra.
information?
So in terms of, it's one thing, as you said, to know something about yourself. But if we can actually utilize this to be able to, because work is not all self. There are parts of work that are self, and there are things that we do on our own that we do better on our own. But there is a reason that we work in teams. We are part of an organization. Hopefully we have a good purpose. We're aiming towards a particular goal that inspires us. And so the ability to be able to work together and be effective is super important in that. So at Good Habits, we realize that, and we've got ways to be able to take that from being something about me to being something about us. And so
Love it.
all of our assessments, and in fact all of our courses that we have, are also designed to be done as a team. So if you take, for example, we have a team roles assessment. It's an easy one to think of because it's even called team roles. So it makes sense that you would do it as a team. And it uses the Belpin model to be able to highlight some areas that of the different types of role I might be in a particular team. And we can make that into an exercise which we do together. So, and it's super fun. Actually, what we do is everyone goes away and does the test themselves. They come back. We've got a little board that's like a circle, and everyone pins where they think each other would be. About that. Then we do a big reveal, like in a in a home makeover kind of show. We do the big reveal, and everyone puts out where they are on the map, and then there's more conversations around that. And it also helps us to highlight what areas of the team we don't have. So we get to see where we are, how we communicate together, but also what are some of the deficits that we might have at a team level. So we try really hard to do that. If you think about, in learning, we talk a lot about the 70-20-10 model. which is that 10% of learning happens in a classroom, or it's the
Yep.
theory that supports a concept. The 20% is the socializing of that. So, if you read something, but then you go and talk to somebody about that, a book, or if you listen to a podcast and then you talk to somebody about that podcast, you're kind of doubling the impact that has. And then the rest of learning happens at work, in the work. And so we try and take care of the 10%, then the 20%, so that as people take that into the work, they continue to grow and continue to develop.
Yeah. I think that 20% is often missed. It's, that those small breakout groups, having those conversations about that theory, talking through the article or the learning is really important for people to solidify it within their mind and make action out of it. Soft skills seems to be a really big topic these days, and one, especially when we think about, I think, managers. There's a lot of added pressure on the middle management these days, especially with remote working and all the changes that are coming at managers. What kind of soft skills are you focused on, and what do you think are going to be really necessary as we think about longer term kind of future of work, future of learning? Where should we be pivoting to?
It's obviously a pretty hot topic at the moment. With what's happening with AI, what's happening with automation, what's happening with just the speed of technological development, really. And so, the big focus that we hear a lot about from our customers and from the marketplace is really about these need for skills that are going to be enduring. What are these skills that are going to stand the test of time, that are going to be required? And so things like adaptability is an obvious one. Our ability to be able to deal with change is really key there. When we look at it from a leadership perspective, being able to communicate effectively, being able to motivate, being able to empower the people around you. These are the kind of skills that we're going to continue to need to be successful. Technology will help us in lots of ways, but the human part of it, soft skills are often called human skills, sometimes power skills. I quite like the term human skills, or even enduring skills. So, because I feel like they are the ones that are going to continue to be necessary. And so when you look at what a lot of organizations are doing now, they're developing these skills models that are going to be required in order to be able to continue. And it's the hard skills that will change. At the moment, a hard skill like driving a truck, for example, will be required for the next few years. Probably by the time we hit the 2030s, a lot of those trucks are going to be automated. So, and a lot of people are saying it's even sooner than that. So those hard skills will change. But how do you deal with that? That's where the ability to be able to make sure that we still have impact, that we can participate and feel like we're contributing. They're the areas, is those human skills. So we focus a lot on those. And in fact, we've gone and categorized those. So we actually have 8 different categories of human skills. So things like teamwork would be a category, or leadership would be a category, or even health and wellness we have as one of those categories. And we see that as being really vital. And I mean, especially in today's world and the post-COVID hangover and everything else that we're seeing. So, so we categorize them into that, and then actually, define each of those skills individually as well.
Amazing. I mean, I think you're right on. You're right on point. Like, it's about our humanity, our humaneness. We know that technology is going to continue to impact us. We don't necessarily know how, but those ideas of motivation and inspiration and those real human elements, I think, are going to continue to play a larger role if we're thinking about the fact that someone like yourself, right, had opted to take a different route, you'd said, nope, I'm leaving the workforce because it's not necessarily meeting my needs, but you found a product to come back in, and you were inspired, you were motivated, right?
Mm,
But I'm sure your role is
mm,
challenging. Those are the things that we're all kind of seeking, and work is becoming a larger part of our lives on a daily basis. And so it needs to meet those human needs, which means we all need to be thinking about those human skills.
yeah. Do you know, it's an interesting point, Kendra. And when we talk about, why I made this jump back into this role, and the product was a huge part of
Yeah.
that, but it also it had a lot to do with the organization as well. And I think that, and especially I know that this is an area that you're really passionate about. It had to be the right type of environment
Yeah.
where we have enough creativity to be able to work, to be able space to be able to be creative, in
Yeah.
what it means to us. There has to be a level of empowerment from the leadership in an organisation that says, "Hey, we believe in these people," and encourages them and supports them to be able to go and do that. And so I really found that at Good Habits. Founder is a guy called Martin Franken, and he and I had a conversation when I was first interviewing for this role, and we spent about 30 minutes. We had an hour together, and we spent about 30 minutes talking about our values in learning, and what learning really meant to us, and that was really important to me. And then we had
Yep.
half an hour left, and we spoke about surfing and sailing. And I was like,
Love
"Yep,
it. Yep.
this is my." So that is a big part of it. Having an organisation that aligns with your values, I think, is
Yeah.
really key. Um, and for me, it was also really about being enabled and empowered to be able to create what we've created in Australia. We've got a great product to work with, but we still need to take it out to market and build that brand and demonstrate how we can add value in what is a pretty competitive and cluttered market. So,
Yes.
mm,
Yes. It's definitely a space I'm seeing and hearing a lot more about, L&D. And definitely with the creation of AI, I imagine that there's quite a bit of AI being used to kind of help design new learning experiences. If you think about learning, um, from that kind of human standpoint, are there any stories or some of the examples potentially of some of the courses that you guys are teaching that you think kind of really nail what differentiates good habits?
yeah, definitely. So, um, I'm not sure if you wanted that from a technology point of view, but if you do, I'm going to park it there for a second, because actually, I
No,
don't think it's the
yeah,
technology that really kind of makes us different. We do some great stuff with AI. You can negotiate with an AI robot in real time, and you can
goodness,
change the personality type of the AI robot so that you negotiate in a more effective way. So we do some stuff like that, but
nice,
thing that really sets us apart is actually our ability to be able to engage and connect with audiences. And so if we think about where are people investing all of their time, outside of work, what are the key things that are stealing attention? So we've got social media, TikTok, LinkedIn, all those sorts of things. We've got Netflix and all the different streaming services. And so if anyone looks at their phone stats, in terms of the amount of time they spend on a screen, and how much of it is in those areas, that is significant for the general
yeah,
population. Significant. The amount of time that I don't even have free to air TV anymore. I only watch shows that I can binge that are on Netflix, and so we see ourselves as not necessarily competing with other learning companies, and this is the big difference: is we see ourselves as competing for people's attention. And so, if we're going to make content,
yeah,
it has to be good enough to compete with TikTok. It has to be good enough to compete with Netflix. And so, I'll give an actual example. One of our we've got lots of different styles of learning. So you can learn by video, or you can read our magazines. There's lots of interactive stuff. There's gamification, some longer format, some shorter format. But one of our key pieces of content is called an up close, which is essentially a 10-minute documentary, and we have these in most of our courses. And I'll give an example of one. So we've got a course that's called Stick to the Plan. Okay, and it's all about goal setting and diligently sticking to what you've said that you're going to do. Right, so you probably couldn't get much more of a boring topic.
Yeah. Fortunately, true.
Just like, oh God, where's this going? So, but actually, what we do with it is super inspiring. And so we start out with this little mini documentary, and it runs for 9 minutes, so it's not too long. And it starts with this guy who's climbing up a rock face, and it's got some music over the background, and you can hear the sound of the carabiners jingling, and you kind of see how high he's narrating over the top. And as he's getting higher, the camera's panning out, and you see how high up he is as he continues to narrate about where his next hand's going to go and all that sort of thing. And then he says, "My name is Jesse Dufton, and I'm a rock climber, and I am blind." And then we go on to hear this incredible story about Jesse and how he sets goals, and how he's able to, how having routine helps him to be able to achieve the things that he wants to achieve. And it's really beautiful. And we've got like 150 different courses, and all of them have a Jesse in them that is there to inspire you and make you think differently, and to get that attention. So yeah,
I got goosebumps.
Yeah, it's super cool. Super cool. I'll give you a copy, but it's a great story, and lots of different versions of that. What we don't tend to have, and this is probably what really connected with me, is we don't have a lot of Harvard professors talking to camera telling us what to do.
Nobody likes
we're
that.
more focused on storytelling. We're focused on real people doing real things, and we've got a brilliant production crew that creates all of this. So it's super exciting.
I think people are really looking for that. I think more and more people are open to personal development, but there's this kind of real focus, and I feel like COVID kind of also really brought this to the forefront, but that triumph of the human spirit. Who doesn't love that kind of story? And it really sticks with you, and it makes you think that you can be great, and how are you going to be great in your own story? I really love the focus on that humanity. And I love that you guys only have 150 type of learnings at the moment. It's not too large of a library, which is just overwhelming. I mean, how many people sit to watch those Netflix and just go spend an hour scrolling through to decide what to watch, and then you don't choose anything. You're like, I'm ready for bed. Overwhelmed.
Yeah, I really believe, if we're going to have a course on giving and receiving feedback, for example, we just make one course and we make it epic.
Yeah.
We make sure that it is the best one that you will see. So,
I love that.
I think, there's just so much information out there as well. It becomes information overload. People get overwhelmed with the amount of content that's there. So we try really hard to simplify that. I think if you took the things that we do really well, simplification of content, of ideas, of strategies, but also the way that it's delivered to you and how easy you can find something, that and impact, making sure that if you're going to invest something yourself, that it's actually going to lead to some sort of change, whether it's a behavioral change or a mindset change.
Right.
There's what's the point in doing it? Other than maybe it's a nice documentary to watch, or it's an interesting game to play. If it doesn't really have some sort of impact like that. So they're the key things for us. I just lost you
Yep.
there again.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, activity over impact. So that leads me to a question around metrics. So how, when you were talking earlier about kind of the need to engage and to really capture the attention, I was thinking back to all of the trainings I've taken where I was multitasking. I'm just doing it because it's a checkbox exercise. So if someone had actually looked to see how long it took me to get through the training, they probably would have understood that I wasn't necessarily engaged in it because I was very distracted by other things. So I'm not sure what kind of metrics you use, but is there what are you guys learning about learning in the organizations that you're at? What are you measuring?
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? So this actually makes me think of a story when I was back working in media, and there was a bunch of us who were selected to do a Harvard
Hmm.
course on management. It was an online course, and when we're talking back in 2006, 7, 8 here, something around that
Yeah.
time. And I was just like, oh, that's amazing. What an opportunity, And I went through this course and I made all these notes. I had a book that I got just for this particular course, and I,
Yeah.
went through it all. And it was probably took me about 10 hours to be able to do the program. And I was like, this is, I felt quite grateful of it. And then I went and spoke to the other 5 people that were chosen in our organization to do it. And everyone said how quickly they got through it. And they were just like, yeah. If you just kept pressing the button, then, it's like, what? And so, but that was a bit insightful
Yeah.
into human behavior and, our motivation for doing something. And one of the things that Martin, our founder, always talks about, he says his line is, "I'm declaring war on adoption." So adoption is a metric that's used in online learning quite a lot, which is, how many people logged on, how many people
Yeah.
started a course or whatever it is. And Martin says, I just don't care. All I really care about is impact. How do we have impact? Now, measuring impact is not as easy as measuring adoption. And so we put a lot of effort into this, and we're about to release actually a new metric that will help us to be able to measure what this is. And so because we've done a lot of the base work in defining what are the skills that are important, what we're now able to do with the assessments is to be able to understand at an individual level, where do I sit on a wheel of those 8 categories of skills? So, how proficient am I in leadership, or how proficient am I in teamwork, for example? And then we're able to understand by doing the courses and seeing how that has impact and potentially reassessing, where's the growth been in that
Yeah.
particular area. So we're not talking about how long somebody studied for or whether they got a completion on a course, like what you're saying, Kendra. And so what we're now looking at is what impact are we having on the skills, those human skills that people need in order to be able to drive organizations forward.
Yeah.
And so we can do that on an individual level. And we're now also able to bring that up to an organizational level to be able to see as an organization, where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses, what are our opportunities for growth, where do we need to hire maybe because we're lacking in good leadership, or maybe we're lacking in digital skills to be able to drive our organization forward. So this is a game changer. And, I think for anyone who's been in learning or is in learning, demonstrating return on investment
Yeah.
is the number one challenge. We've heard so much talk in the last year or two about this, AI is going to be everything. I firmly believe the biggest challenge that we have, and it's probably always been the way, is the ability to demonstrate that we learning people have impact in an organization. And
Yeah.
so for me, this is probably the first step. I think there'll be more. This is for me that I've seen to be able to really demonstrate actually we are moving the needle. We're
Yeah.
creating change for the organization, and we're creating change for individuals or for teams for that matter. So
Yeah. A
that's
large,
that.
yeah, it's been, I mean, that's been my challenge in my HR career, right? Is how do you demonstrate that impact? That human development piece is really difficult.
Yeah,
And we all like to leverage, our different programs and activities, and we all liken it back to, well, it's a retention strategy. It is, but it can be so much more, and I think it's really important in how it shapes the culture and developing the loyalty of your people and creating that opportunity for them to have a human experience within your organization. I believe firmly will be what keeps people at organizations. Like you said before, it was really the people within the organization that enticed you, and to be
yeah.
able to talk about shared loves like surfing. Um,
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
curious, how do you build that in? Do you build that into your daily routine? Any
Yeah,
practical
quite
tips?
often. So I live, or actually, our office is about 200 meters that way
Nice.
to the beach. So I normally try and get a surf in the morning, or if I don't, I go to the gym. So I like being really healthy, and I play a bit of tennis as well.
Lovely.
A lot of that takes up a lot of my time. My daughters are mad soccer players. They're 14 and 12. I love kicking a ball around with them. And I certainly encourage them to keep playing team sport for as long as possible. So we really promote that. My wife's really keen to be able to make that keep happening as well. She is very much a soccer mum. She has her own business as well, but she spends way too many hours driving kids from one training to rep training to games and all that sort of thing. So yeah, like
Yeah.
the lifestyle is definitely a part of it. It's one of the reasons that I said that I would take this job as well was that I wanted it to be in Byron Bay, and that's because I really believe it fosters the right type of culture and
Yeah.
environment for an organization to run the way that I was envisaging it to run. So, as an example, so today we're shooting this on a Monday. We do our Monday beach walk with the
Oh,
team every morning. So we all meet at 8:30 down at the beach and go for a strategy walk in the and a swim after it. And actually, it's arguably the most productive hour of our week
wow.
because when you walk and talk, so much comes out. This morning was beautiful. We've had a lot of rain lately, and so
Mhm.
having a beautiful blue sky and nice little waves crashing on the beach was a real win. But yeah, that's been a big part of what what we try to create here is the environment and everything else around it.
It really sounds like a very conscious group of individuals. So, I feel like I could talk your ear off and keep talking to you for hours, but I know we're getting close to time. Is there any practical tips around learning that you want to share with listeners? And then where can they find more information about Good Habits?
Mm. Mm. I'd like to share one that's well, it is about good habits. I was about to say but it's actually my theory on learning,
Love it.
and that is that it shouldn't learning should never be a massive change. Learning is about incremental change,
Hmm.
thinking about what's something that I could do 1% better, or if I decide that I want to be a manager and I'm not currently a manager, what are the little things that I can start doing in order to be able to build my confidence, to be able to build my capability? And so when we break learning down into these little parts, then I think we're much more likely to be successful with developing something. And so that's been my theory. I definitely try to adhere to that as much as I can myself. But Obviously, we're called Good Habits. So learning is about building habits. And I think that habit is really about, making learning a habit, doing those 1%ers in order to be able to create some change. In terms of Good Habits, people can see us at our website. So it's goodhabitz.com, and that's Good Habits with a Z at the end, not an S, because we're a Dutch company and we're a little bit zany. So Good Habits with a Z.com. And then we're also on the usual social profiles, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. Or feel free to reach out to us in the Byron office. And if you're in town, feel free to swing by for a coffee, or if it's Friday afternoon, maybe a beer at the pub across the road.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I will certainly be keeping my eye on you guys and following along. Thank you so much for your time, Cam. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Kendra. Thanks for having me on, and have a great week.
Hi, friends. You've heard me mention how life-changing my work with the Conscious Business Institute has been. In fact, our podcast today is not just sponsored by, but its existence is a result of the Conscious Business Institute's master program. If you yourself are sensing there is a deeper potential within you, as I was, if you're ready and determined to shape an inspiring and thriving purpose-centric life, you're in luck, as applications for the next CBI Master Program are now open. Want to be the best leader your team has ever had? Sign up now. What awaits you? Purpose-driven leadership, clarity on your impact, refined relationship skills, and indispensable communication strategies. Plus, you'll gain exclusive access to the Conscious Business Toolkit, which is a catalyst for lasting transformative change. If you're ready to become the leader you were always meant to be, simply go to master.consciousbusinessinstitute.com and apply today, and get ready for the most life-changing experience of your adult life.